Thank you everyone for coming here so late in the afternoon. My name is Kai Kreuzer. I'm working in the Connected Home department of Deutsche Telekom. And I'm project lead of Eclipse SmartHome project, founder of the OpenHub project for home automation, and well, being day and night a smart home enthusiast, really. So that will be also the topic of my session here today, smart home. And actually, as I think that there's something wrong going on in the industry around smart homes, the title is here the cloudless smart home, because that's really something which I think we should get to. But let's start with that. So if you look at smart home stuff that you get today, you buy a lot off the shelf, different devices, you get a nice smartphone app for that, and you can control it or get some notifications, information, whatever. So pretty neat, but you're somehow ending up with a lot of different silos, and you're not really having any interoperability between all the stuff, and it's not really getting to a smart solution. Now, if you look at how the infrastructure actually looks like, is that all of these devices usually reach out to a cloud service of their manufacturer, because the app on the smartphone somehow needs to access the device, even remotely. And so you have all this architecture in the end. And for me, this is really rather depressing if I look at that from a user perspective. I used to call that my rainy day slide. And it's really not a way that you would like to have it, because what's happening here, well, they reach out to their more or less every single connection is a potential vulnerability to your home setup, or it might be misused. All the devices are sending your own data to the different services out there, and you're really not in control of that. Now, what the industry is doing here now to solve the interoperability problem is fairly easy. Well, on the web side, we more or less have standards. We have REST APIs, JSON, whatever, and it's fairly easy to integrate then the different cloud services with each other. So think of stuff like works with Nest or if this then that, which actually do exactly that. But again, if you look from a user perspective, if you now have a light switch from one vendor and your light bulb from another, you actually depend on 3 different cloud services just to switch a single light in your home, right? And what you always have to remember is, well, there is no cloud, there are just other people's computers. So you depend on that stuff. And as you've seen, such a dependency on third parties is not always really good for the reliability of the systems. We just had earlier this month the problems on Amazon S3, where all of a sudden then IFTTT didn't work anymore. So people say, hey, I can't switch my light, something's wrong there. There are also situations where then the services of the manufacturer that you depend on, and they again depend on Amazon, for example, so that doesn't work anymore either. Other situations where actually the servers are too accessible for people stealing actually data and trying to do bad things with that. So also not a nice thing to see happening. And even if the servers are available, we have seen the big distributed denial of service attack, where actually the internet itself wasn't available anymore, although the servers were up and running. And also these situations are not really good to have a reliable smart home solution. So for me, the current setup, it's really what I would call a connected home. And the difference to a smart home is really that you should have the stuff working locally for you. And for smart home, the important word for me is also the home part. So all your devices are actually at home. You have in your home a local network where everything is connected. And that's why actually IoT doesn't mean the Internet of Things for me, but it's the intranet of things from a smart home user perspective. And having this intranet in place with all my devices there, I really just need some central piece to allow the connectivity there, to allow interoperability between the devices and have automation rules there. And this is something that Eclipse SmartHome actually addresses as a framework to build a software stack on a local gateway to do all of these things. Now, the software stack tries to go the pragmatic approach, so we're doing the Hollywood principle, don't call us, we are not defining a new protocol that all the devices have to speak in order to be compatible with Eclipse SmartHome. But we say we call you, so we adapt to your API, to the devices, what they offer, how they can be connected to, and how they can be controlled. And doing that in a modular fashion, really. There is a huge community around these projects, as they are open source and really available to everyone. And this is just a list of not even half the integrations that has been done by the community to different systems to really get them all under one hood to work together. Now, the technical basis, as I said, it's open source. It's based on Java. It uses OSGi for the modularity so that you can easily plug in support for new stuff. And as a framework, it provides more or less 4 different functional parts. The first is everything around discovering devices in your network, setting them up, configuring them. Second part is then all around the automation aspects, having things done automatically. Third part around data handling, so locally persisting data to be able to retrieve that later on and to act on that basis, or to also do charting, time series, and so on. And last but not least, all around user interfaces, be it graphical user interfaces, smartphone apps, whatever, or also voice interaction. So we have support for text-to-speech, speech-to-text, natural language interpretation, and so on. Now, Eclipse SmartHome itself is a framework to build solutions on top. We at Deutsche Telekom, we actually built a commercial solution using that called Magenta SmartHome, which is in Europe available on the market, which you can buy really as a piece of hardware where the stack is running on top. There are other solutions, and the one that I'm going to use for a small demo here is OpenHub that I mentioned, which is really just open source, pure software that you can download yourself, run on a Raspberry Pi very easily, and have really the whole freedom to play and tinker with that. Good, and you see I brought a couple of devices here. So first of all, I have OpenHub running directly from my computer here. So my notebook actually serves as my Raspberry Pi, as my home gateway right now. Right here, I brought my own personal router. So my network connection, as you can see here, it's a smart home demo. So I'm hooked up to my own local network, so no internet connection at all here, because that's anyhow always dangerous at a conference to rely on any kind of internet connection. Hooked up to the router as well as here a Sonos speaker, Philips Hue gateway. So for the ones who don't know Philips Hue, how it technically works, it's a gateway connected through Ethernet. And this thing then does a ZigBee radio protocol to this light bulb. So it's very close here, but it's doing radio communication between here. So it's really all stuff that you can buy off the shelf and just connect it locally here. And last but not least, that's actually something I built myself, which I'm very proud of. It's my doorbell, and it just should show that there's very cheap and easy way to start also with home automation stuff, because the main feature is here in RS-232 to USB cable, where the doorbell just shortcuts 2 pins on that to serve as a kind of input device. And you can easily do that as, at home with your existing doorbell, to to do something with that. So that much just about the hardware. Actually, one other device I brought is my mobile phone, which I'll also use for the demo. And let me just quickly check if everything's on the network, because I didn't do that on the preparation. Okay, looks good. Speakers there. So what I want to show you is not every single step in detail how you would set up OpenHub to make it use, but I've prepared some setup and just guide you a little bit through the feature so that you get an impression what it can do, what you can do with that. And if you want to know details, we can discuss that later on. Or yeah, you can check the documentation and play with the stuff yourself. So first of all, it's important to know that in OpenHub you actually start modeling your home and the stuff that you want to work with actually. So it's really on an abstract level, not talking about devices or anything specific, but more about information and stuff you want to control and interact with. So if we look here, this is the so-called items file. You can define now different kinds of information. I've set up here 5 number values which should represent temperatures of the different rooms. I can give them a label, an icon, and a group association, and this group is defined up here. So a group can itself have some type, a number in this case, and it actually derives its own state from the state of its members by building the average from the members here. So this is just some part of the information, and I've set up some further items, so like a color light, which should represent them here in the end, my real light, music player, a volume, or as a kind of information, it doesn't have to be that one actually. A presence information, whether I'm at home or not, or somebody is at home or not. And well, the God mode I'm just using to do some fancy stuff afterwards. So with that information, you can set up some more stuff like persistence information. So what I've defined in this file here is that actually I want to persist all items from the temperature group and the presence and the light every 10 seconds. And I've defined what every 10 seconds means simply by a cron expression here. So there's something you can configure and set up for your system in some way, and then simply make sure that you have that data available locally. As I don't have my home with me and the temperature sensors for the different rooms, what I've also set up here is just some demo rule, which actually does nothing else than at the system start, going through all the members of my temperature group and posting a state update for every single member and just calculating some random Fahrenheit number here. Okay, and afterwards doing every 10 seconds a little shift of this number and changing it. So this is just some rules now simulating me real devices. Now, once you've set up your items and your information, you can also declare how you want to use them in the user interface. These are the so-called sitemaps, which is also just a declarative approach to say, well, this kind of information I want to show on my UI. Here I'm saying, first, please render me the group of my temperature, then do a color picker for my light so that I can switch that, presence information, music, okay. With that information, we can directly now have a look at one UI. So this is the dashboard that gives you the different options, what is available, be it a pure REST API, which is not so nice for the end user, of course. The basic UI now accesses the sitemap information and actually just renders me exactly that, what you've seen there. So the group of temperatures, you see that's the average value now. If we click here, we see the single values, and they should update regularly. So this is here. We can go to the color picker. If we do something here, not much is happening because we didn't connect any of our devices here yet, right? So this is all just really still a virtual, a modeled setup of what you actually want to have in your home, what you want to control. It's a one-time setup of this stuff. Now, going to another UI, the paper UI, which is mainly meant for administration purposes. We will actually see that this has now already discovered some things on my network, the Philips Hue bridge here and the Sonos speaker. Let's start with the Philips Hue bridge. We can just say, okay, let's use that one. We add that to our system. And if we look at it, it still complains here that it's not authenticated because the Philips Hue bridge, there's a small button which you now have to press here first in order to make sure that the application that wants to connect to it actually has then the right to do so. So after a short moment, the message disappears. And we actually should soon find then a further device, because now OpenHub was able to query the bridge, what bulbs are actually connected to it. And so it now found out about the Hue Bloom here, which we can now say, okay, let's add that one. And this is now online, so available. And it shows the channels, which are the functions that this device actually provides, where we can now say, okay, we want to use this function, the color function, to actually control our light item. So we're creating a link now from the physical device to our modeled setup. And once this is linked, this now directly will work together. We can do the very same for the Sonos speaker. So we're adding that, and we see this has some more functionality, and that's even just the small list. If we do show more, you see it's a long, long list of stuff that you can actually do from there. What we are only interested in is here the control for the start. We can link it here, and the volume, which might be important. Okay, so this one is set up there as well. Now, another device that hasn't been found automatically is my smartphone, because this I will actually just use by checking its existence by pinging it. And as it doesn't want to do a network scan automatically at startup, you have to manually now ask for it. So it's actually now going, and maybe I should have it on to be available. Searching for network devices. Let me check which IP address it is. 116, I think I had that once ignored already. No, it's not. Okay, but doesn't matter. So if it doesn't find it by network scan, it's very easy to actually add a device manually. So we can now go here and say the, oops, let me increase that. The IP address of the device that I want to track is 116. We have a good network here, so we don't have to do it that long. We check it every 5 seconds. And we can actually use also listening for DHCP requests for a device that is joining back to the network, which is also quite useful. So now we have that here, and we can say, well, the online information, whether it's there or not, we want to link to our presence information. So with all that set up, if we go back here, we actually see that it automatically already switched now to at home because it already checked the phone. And we should be able to use the speaker here. Good. And also switch the light from here. Yeah. Okay. So all of that setup is working. One first rule that I want to show you, the classical way, which I've prepared here. It's a scripted rule. with what I can do now with these devices here. Let me go here, add that to my rules and then show you. So this is now a simple rule saying, well, if I'm actually leaving my home, the music can be turned off, and it should actually check if there's still any light on and notify me, and even then directly turn it off for me to make it most convenient. Okay, so that's really a very simple scripting mechanism here that you have available. If we save that and we go back here, we have the music playing. And now let's try to actually deactivate my Wi-Fi. So after at most 5 seconds, it should notice it.
You have left the light on. I will turn it off for you.
Okay. Now it's a bit slower than I am in turning the light off. But it should do it. It stopped the music already. It talked to me. Pretty good start. I can hook back up to the network. It's off. Yeah. Okay, so that is the scripting version of rules, but that's something for tech-savvy people and not for everyone in the end. But there's a nicer mechanism available in OpenHub now, where you can actually prepare such things and share that with other users. And well, the use case I want to show with that is a smart doorbell. That's why I have the doorbell here. So first of all, I need to define that in my items file. I take that from my snippets here as well. And this is now simply a switch. I can increase that. A switch for the doorbell, and here's actually now a shortcut to hooking up physical devices. So this one is using now the serial binding and just defining the port to it. And this will automatically now discover if you have shortcutted there the pins. If I save that, it should automatically reload the configuration, and actually once this turns off, I know that it's connected to the network. So we have the doorbell, and we can go to the rules section in the paper UI here and say, let's create a rule from a template. And there is a template, a smart doorbell, which we can select. And this now asks us to fill out some information. So what item is actually my doorbell? Well, the doorbell item. What is your presence information? That's this one. What is the light that you might want to flash? That's some optional information. Let me see there. It's here. So we fill out the configuration, say, OK, let's go for that, and the rule is there. Now, let's check. We were at home right now. If somebody rings the bell. So I have my automatic doorbell here and also some light notification in case I don't hear it because there's too loud music or whatever. And if I'm not at home, wait, I shouldn't press there. I should just leave the Wi-Fi again. When I'm not at home, I should have it updated there soon. Come on. 5 seconds, I said. Okay. If now there's some guest, he will be scared away. Okay, wonderful. So that's directly working here. The next short example is a use case an energy meter. For that, again, I need to define some new item. I say I have an energy consumption of my home, so I just have some number value. Let's define that here. And on the rules, there is a template that someone prepared called an energy meter. So the idea is here, you want to visualize your energy consumption in your home through a color light, green for low, red for high, and so on. And again, we are asked for some configuration. So what is actually the consumption value? That's that one. Which is the light to switch? What is the maximum consumption where it should be read? That's 10 kilowatts. Let's put that here. And again, as I didn't bring any device that could measure energy right now, I can do so through a user interface. And for this, I want to show you another one that exists, a so-called hub panel. And here I now can play God and decide what's actually my current energy consumption in the home by clicking here, and you see the rule is directly automatically working. So something in the middle, it's yellowish tone, getting orange to red the more it is. And if we're not consuming anything, it's green. So again, very, very easy to have a more complex rule being instantiated by a regular user here. Another feature here on this dashboard that I can show you is the statistics part. So here we actually can have timelines of information like when were we at home, when was our light on, and have that really shown on a timeline. Down here we have interactive charts with 3 different temperature values here now that are written directly to the database and visualized here. So that's pretty neat. Okay, so as a last example for the rules, there is one called fire alarm, which is also something that people created before to say, well, okay, if I have all these temperature values in my rooms and I might not have smoke detectors available everywhere, but if I notice that some temperature goes beyond a critical value, then I want to have an alarm being there and being notified about that. So again, let's add a new item for covering that. Again, just a switch information, so whether an alarm is on or off. And this now has some special information here, and it's a so-called semantic tag. So that's also a feature which is rather new, not used much so far, but you can put semantic information on your items to actually say what is it about. And this one now says, okay, this should be started whenever there's anything around an alarm, then this one is relevant, this item. I thought I'm usually in don't disturb mode. Let's go here. So, having that in here,
You have left the light on. I will turn it off for you.
Thank you very much. Did I just leave the Wi-Fi? Seems so. Rule is still working. Wonderful. So, getting back to the rules, so what should actually happen if the alarm is activated? I can do again with a small rule here, which I've prepared. So you could have, for example, directly a siren that is connected to this alarm item and which will trigger something. I'm now again doing the alarm stuff simply by a rule, saying, okay, if there is an alarm triggered, then just blink the light, say alarm, and notify me that way. Okay, so having that, we can go to click here to the paper UI back and create a third rule here from a template using the fire alarm. Again, some information. We want to have the temperature group here and threshold, what should be actually the critical value. Let's put 100 degree Fahrenheit here when we say it's getting too warm. Okay, so this rule is added. this is now why I activated the God mode so that it doesn't start or continue to randomly create any values here. And so I can now change the temperatures in the rooms. You see the average temperature is automatically adjusted as well. And if one of them now goes beyond 100,
alarm.
We get our alarm automatically here. 3 times in a row. Okay, and we see the fire alarm is activated here, and have that also nicely in place. Okay, and with this, I'm actually at the end of the demo, and yeah, thank you very much for your attention. Any questions?
So, if I have to control like devices from away from home, like how can I do that?
Okay, and the question is, how can you actually access then that if you're not on your intranet? For this, I can just, let me quickly go back to, no, not this slide, sorry. To this slide. So the idea is really to have the gateway as the point which can be remotely accessed then. So you have different options. You can have a service provider like the commercial solution from Deutsche Telekom, for example. We, of course, have a cloud service that allows you to remotely connect to that. For something like OpenHub, you could do simply a dun DNS access to your system. You could set up a VPN, which is always the safest solution. Or you could have a cloud service that specifically works for remote proxying your local instance. And there's actually also an open source project called OpenHub Cloud, which does exactly that. It's a small Node.js application that you can deploy somewhere on the web where your local instance connects to, and this allows you then remote access to your devices. Any other questions? Please.
You showed text-to-speech.
Right. Very good question. So the question was, I showed text-to-speech working online. Is it also possible to have speech-to-text having offline? And this is also something that I'm looking for and would love to see that being integrated. So far, we have an interface defined in the framework where you can plug in implementations. But as speech recognition is really something very hard, and specifically you need usually a big data set to do good results on that. There isn't really anything decent I found so far that can be integrated there. There were some initial proof of concepts using Pocket Sphinx as a software, which is a C implementation that also works on a Raspberry Pi for some simple kind of recognition. So if you have fixed sentences and you more or less already know what you expect as an input, that works offline. But besides that, most good services are really only available online indeed.
So these devices, does they have like a standard that they this complies to, or like there will be specific devices that it can only talk to?
You mean the end devices that are controlled? No, that's really, as I said, we try to support what is there, what you can buy off the shelf. So it really depends on the device manufacturer, what they offer as an integration, as an API, as a protocol.
You have left the light on. I will turn it off for you.
I turned you off now. Let me kill it. So, no, it's not that we say this is what we expect and how it should be, but there's really so much diversity out there and different protocols for different kind of use cases I don't see anything like that happening actually for the home, that there is the one single standard that will be established anytime soon. Okay, so thank you very much again. I'm around here for further questions, and enjoy the rest of the conference.